Your love is better than all the others that I've seen. Yeah, I'm breathing deep. Oh, love, your goodness, your loving kindness to me now. Now I can see your love is better than all the others that I've seen. Yeah, I'm breathing deep. Oh, love, your goodness, your loving kindness to me. Now I can see your love is better than all the others that I've seen. I'm breathing deep. Oh, love, your goodness, your loving kindness to me now. Now I can see your love is better than all the others that I've seen. Oh, I'm breathing deep. Oh, love, your goodness, your loving kindness to me. And I'll lean back in the loving arms of a beautiful Father. Oh, yeah, you are. I'll breathe deep and know that He's good. He's a love like no other. Yeah. I will lean back in the loving arms of a beautiful Father. Yes, you are. Breathe deep, know that He's good. He's a love like no other. Love like no other. Love like no other. Your love like no other. Oh, your love like no other. Your love like no other. Yeah. Your love like no other. There's none like you. Your love like no other.
Should this be here? Testing. Testing. Why is it so fuzzy? Check. Please. Is that better? Hey everybody, my name's Tyler, and we are in a new series today called In My Opinion. Now we gave it that name because my opinion is the only one that matters. Psych! It's not why we gave it that name. We gave it that name because if there's one thing that we all have, it's an opinion. Now, I don't know about you, but I feel like I hear the phrase, in my opinion, a lot. Sometimes we use it when we're not totally sure how what we're gonna say will be received or if we're gonna be judged for it. So like, in my opinion, it's the best song ever written. Or like, in my opinion, those are the coolest sneakers I've ever seen. Or, in my opinion, that math test was awful. The one with the long division. I hate long division. We might use that phrase when we don't want other people to judge us, but it works both ways. Sometimes we use it to give ourselves permission to be the ones passing judgment. Like adding in a quick, well, in my opinion, makes us feel free to say whatever we really think. In my opinion, she's too clingy. In my opinion, that guy's a real jerk. In my opinion, that movie is so nerdy. See, on their own, those thoughts are merely judgments we've made about other people. But when we present them as opinions, we suddenly feel better about sharing them. So just to be clear, there's nothing wrong with having an opinion, both having one and sharing one. The problem is that sometimes what we call an opinion is really just a judgment. It's something negative that we think or say about someone else. And when we start spreading those opinions around, well, then we've got a problem. You don't need me to tell you this, do you? As middle schoolers, you know exactly how much time people spend spreading their opinions around. You know better than most just how often students talk or gossip about each other. So why is it that we find gossip such an easy thing to do? Why do we feel so free to talk about each other? Well, I think honestly, it's for a few reasons. For starters, I think sometimes our insecurities, yes, I have insecurities, you do too. Well, insecurities sometimes motivate us to gossip. We talk about other people so that nobody points out what's wrong with us. After all, it's easier to focus on the insecurity of others than let them know what we're insecure about. Or maybe we gossip because it's a way to bond with our friends. If we can contribute to the conversation with a good piece of gossip, we feel like we've got an in with the people that we're talking to. And isn't it better to feel in than it is to feel out? Maybe we gossip because honestly, it's fun. We like to be the first to know a good story or crazy rumor or piece of information about someone else. There's just something exciting about being in the middle of the stuff that's happening at school or in our friend group or maybe even in our family. And because of that, we talk about it. Or maybe, for some of us, gossip is about competition. We want to be the best or the coolest or the most popular, and in order to get there, we feel like we have to cut other people down. We have to talk badly about others to show that we're the best. Or maybe, and this one is tricky, sometimes we gossip because it's true. Those opinions we share aren't just opinions, they're facts. That guy really did date that girl. That kid in your science class did really cheat on that test. That guy actually did show up at that party this weekend. That student in your small group definitely did get caught doing something they weren't supposed to do. Because it's true, we think it's okay to talk about. After all, they kind of brought it on themselves, right? And what's trickier than that is that sometimes we don't mean any harm with what we say. Our intentions aren't bad. We all talk to our friends about everything, and that includes the latest gossip. Sometimes we share it because we really are worried or surprised, or we want to help in some way. Besides, we trust the person that we're talking to, right? We know that they won't tell or repeat what we're saying, will they? How many of your conversations that include gossip start with a sentence like this? I'm not supposed to tell anyone this, but so like the reality is that the gossip is a huge part of our current culture. We have TV shows and podcasts and other forms of entertainment that are basically centered around the idea that it's okay to gossip and judge people. Some celebrities build their entire brand on being talked about. They don't mind being the center of gossip because it means they're the center of attention. And social media? Honestly, the comment section could just be called like the gossip section on some posts. Maybe you even see this at church or at home or at your school. Your parents, your teachers, your coaches, your small group leaders, they gossip around you, so could it really be that big of a deal? I think we all know the answer to that question is yes. We know because we've seen gossip go so bad. We've seen the consequences and the hurt and the embarrassment it's brought on somebody else. Maybe we've even experienced it ourselves. But is there anything that we can do to change it? If gossip is such a big part of our culture, how are we supposed to keep from doing it? Today, we're gonna look at a verse from the Bible written by a guy known as the Apostle Paul. So Paul was a leader in the early Christian church. He had a lot of influence that spread Christianity all around the world. Because of that, he often wrote letters to encourage the Christian churches of his time. A lot of those letters are part of what is called the New Testament in the Bible. The verse we're gonna look at today is from a book called Ephesians, which is actually a letter Paul wrote to the church in the city of Ephesus. Paul wanted to encourage the believers there to live differently than the people around them. One of the areas where Paul wanted his fellow Jesus followers to live differently was the way that they spoke. Here's what he wrote. Don't use foul or abusive language. See, when Paul used the phrase foul and abusive language here, he wasn't just talking about like cuss words or harsh words or mean names. He was talking about any language that hurts, breaks down, and damages friendships, relationships, and influence. In fact, the Greek word he used here actually translates to mean rotten. Have you ever seen a piece of rotten fruit? Well, it's disgusting, it smells bad, it turns a nasty color, it attracts flies. How I said it smells bad, really bad. That is tough. Basically, you don't want this in your kitchen. I don't even want this around me right now. Rotten fruit's bad. And Paul said this kind of language, like these opinions that we spread around as gossip, it does the same thing. It rots our relationships, our friendships, our ability to influence other people for good. So what can we do? How do we start to produce good fruit instead of rotten fruit with the words that come out of our mouths? Well, I think something Jesus said can give us an idea. Take a look. It's not what goes into your body that defiles you. You are defiled by what comes from your heart. Can I just let you in on a little secret about gossip? It's not really about the person you're talking about. Gossip is really about what's happening inside of you. It's about what's happening in your heart. That's what Jesus was saying here. When we use language that hurts or speaks badly about somebody else, the kind of language that rots, that's happening because of something similar, something rotten going on in our own hearts. When you talk badly about someone or speak with the intention of hurting or embarrassing or just shaming them, it doesn't necessarily show something rotten about that person. It shows that something rotten's happening inside of you. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not the kind of fruit I want to produce in my life. So if we want to change our words and stop gossiping, we've got to check our hearts. We've got to ask ourselves, what's going on inside of us that makes us want to say those things? And then we've got to make a choice to change our language. But here's the truth. When it comes to gossip, you can choose not to participate. You can choose not to speak words that hurt or shame or embarrass someone else. And here's what I love about this. Paul didn't leave us to figure it out on our own. If we go back to his letter one more time, he gives us a tip on exactly the kind of language we can choose that's not only better for the other person, but better for ourselves. He says, let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. So instead of gossiping, Paul says we can choose words that are good and that are helpful. We can choose to say things that encourage not just the people that we're talking about, but anyone else who hears what we say. In other words, we can choose words that help others, not words that hurt others. When you love and care about other people first, when that's the attitude in your heart, you'll stop yourself from saying the negative things. You'll think about them before you. You'll stop the gossip before it starts. So remember, choose words that help others, not words that hurt others. Gossip is going to be all around you, and everyone else might be doing it, but you get to choose if you contribute or not. In fact, you have the power not to do what everyone else is doing. You have the power to choose words that build up instead of tear people down. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but just because gossip is fun or natural or true doesn't mean it's good. And you don't have to do this on your own. God's very Spirit lives inside of you, and He'd love to help you choose to speak life instead of words that rot. So, ask Him for help. So next time you find yourself about to give an opinion you know is nothing more than gossip, I want you to stop and ask yourself this. Why do I want to say this? What's happening in me that's making me want to say this thing to or about someone else? What does this show me about my heart? Identify where your desire to gossip is coming from, Then, give yourself a new filter for your words. Use the one Paul gave us by asking, is this helpful? Is what you're about to say helpful to somebody else? Is it going to build up or encourage? Is it gonna bring like good fruit instead of this? If the answer to any of those questions is no, then that's probably a sign that you don't need to say it. Let that stop you from saying it. We should choose words that help others, not words that hurt others. So today, as you leave, I want you to think about this. What's one reason I tend to gossip?